had a couple different solutions for this, but give me just 1 second. All right, so this is the code that we started with on Monday, and let me just pull it up in the browser. All right, so we're basically replicating a Udemy component, schedule learning time. This is pretty close. This is almost exactly what it was. The font is a little bit different. I think we needed a little bit of margin on the top and a little bit of margin on the bottom, but besides that, this is pretty spot on to the component. I'll go ahead and show everybody. It was this one, I believe. Yes. So you can see. It's pretty spot on. Pretty spot on. We could probably use a little space around here just to get it perfect, but now you're just pulling teeth. A little bit of margin down here, a little bit of margin up here. Besides that, it's pretty spot on. So what we're going to be doing today is, instead of focusing on HTML and CSS, we're going to be focusing on some very basic JavaScript. And so what we want to do is, when we click this dismiss button, we just want this to disappear. And so I want to ask everyone, how, for the people who are more experienced, who have used JavaScript before, I have 5 different ways that we could remove it, some better than others depending on the situation. But let me ask, can anyone think of the way to remove this entire, so let's see, if we're looking at, this div, the schedule container, right? So the border is on here, that's the schedule container. How do we remove this when someone clicks dismiss? And you know what, I'm just gonna add an H1 here. Just so we can see course details, and that's gonna stay. All right, how do we do that? What's one way that we could click this and remove this whole thing?
Can I take a shot at it?
Yeah. What do you think?
Um, okay, so in the front end, I give it an ID. In the JavaScript file, I do something like document. Um, you set a click event, and when you click it, it's like document get element by ID, and in it you set a event listener with a click, and when you click it, put in the code that telling it what you wanted it to do, which would be something like this. It's almost like CSS that says, make it disappear.
Okay.
That's the English.
Yes. Do you have any idea on, so let me ask you this. What element are we targeting?
In that case, it would be whatever element is making the dismiss in the HTML. I have to look at the code. Look for the word dismiss. That's the element that's doing it.
Okay.
Like when I do something like this, if I wanted to really know, I'm not sure, I would do a search. Type in the word dismiss. It'll go to that, and I know that's the element that I'm doing.
So this
Or
button,
you can do it the way you do it.
so
You
this
can
button.
look in the. You can look in the. Do a. What do you call it? You bring up the browser. You look in the browser. You see where the element is, and then that's the element.
All right. So of these, this is our container right here, right?
Right.
This is our container. And you said that you want to add an event listener that does something when you click it. Of these elements here, Which one do you want to add the event listener to?
It's a button. It's the button. I think the last one, button light. Dismiss that one.
Okay. So target element, dismiss button. Okay. And then add event listener to dismiss button, right?
To that button, yes, you're gonna get an ID, and there's several ways to do it. I think the way I always do it is a document dot. When I type it in, it comes in. When you go to JavaScript, JavaScript helps you a lot. If you type in document get element by ID, it's gonna show you. You're gonna get what you need, and then in it, you're going to put that element ID in the quotation marks. That's going to be the one you want. Then it's almost like a function. And in that function, it's going to be like where you can say you want to click the event. And that's the event that the listener is going to trigger when you do it. You can have all kinds of events.
So this is good. This is all good. This all looks good. Then inside the function, what do we want to do to actually make it disappear?
Get to CSS. I do what you do. Google. I would Google. Off the top of my head, I don't always remember, but what you always tell us, and I take it to heart now. I would Google. What do I want to do when I want an element to disappear?
All right, so do that. Do that well. Let's ask someone else. All right, so someone else. Let's see. Javier, any thoughts on this? James has a pretty good base. And then within the function, there's a few different ways we could do this. Any thoughts on it?
What's funny is I was taking a class earlier on something similar to this, but I can't recall it at the moment.
Okay. No sweat. Well, you could give it a Google if you want to, because there are.
Yeah.
I found 5 different ways, so I'm curious what you all come up with. Ricky, can you talk today?
Hey Jim, yes, today I can talk, working from home.
Awesome, cool. What are you thinking?
Well, yeah, given that as James suggested, we have the event handler with the function and everything. Once we get a handle of the schedule container, one way would be to play with the CSS attributes. Maybe we can give display none. That's probably the less intrusive solution. So the container would still be in the DOM, but it's just not visible.
So you're saying target inside the function, the first thing we do is target the schedule container.
Yeah.
And then we're going to set the schedule.style.display to none.
Yeah.
All right. That works. What else? What's another way? James, did you find something?
You have visibility hidden.
Visibility hidden. And you're setting the visibility of the schedule container?
No, just that element. You don't need to do the whole container. You just need to do that particular element.
You want this whole box, you want everything inside of here to disappear, though. Everything within the border. Right? So you're saying visibility element CSS property. All right, yeah, so you're saying set the visibility of the element. We have visible and we have hidden. All right, so yeah, what you're saying is you want to set the visibility of the schedule container to hidden, right?
Whatever that container is, I'm not looking at it. I'm going to get some of my code that does it.
No, you're good. All right, and then that's one way. That's another way. So let's see. Who haven't we asked yet? We have Parker. What do you think?
Alright, so I want to manipulate the DOM, and because I'm gonna like first, let's see, I want to target that element, and then I need to give it like a name, and then I'm trying to think of the steps involved. So okay, I want to manipulate the DOM. I want to target that element, so whatever that dismiss thing is called, and then I want to then alter that. So then to do that, let's see. When I click that, like I'm gonna call it something. Let's say clear button. The clear button will then get attached to an event lister. So that lister will say, well, okay, you're gonna run this, function or whatever, and this function says, I'm gonna just clear the page, or I'm gonna add it to like something else. So I want to. I'm trying to think of the first thing. The first thing I want to do. I'm reading right now. Let's see.
So I'm gonna categorize these a little bit too. So with these first two methods, this one where we're setting the schedule style display to none, and where we're setting the visibility to hidden, with these two methods here, this schedule container is actually still present in the DOM. So still there. But there are ways to remove it where it's not there. It's actually removed entirely from the DOM. So you would use this in different situations. So when you want to remove the element, but you want to make it easy to toggle back and forth, like a drop-down menu, for example. If you're building a drop-down menu from scratch, it's not something you want to remove from the entire DOM. It's not something you want to remove from the entire DOM, because if you want to add it back to the DOM, then you have to rebuild it and then show it. So it's just less efficient. It's easier to just toggle hidden, visible. So the first two methods are good for something that you want to keep on the DOM, something that you expect that's going to be toggled back and forth. There are also methods like with this one where you don't really want to toggle back. This is more like a pop-up than anything. Once you click dismiss, it's gone until you maybe refresh the page or navigate somewhere else. So I would challenge someone to come up with a method, or think of a method, or Google a method where we're actually removing it entirely from the DOM. Let's see, who hasn't said anything? Toya, I can't remember if you have any JavaScript experience or if you're on the newer side. What's going on? You are muted. I don't know if you do want to unmute and talk. You are subscribed. I believe you signed up on Monday, so you can unmute if you want to unmute. There's a button on the bottom left that says unmute. So feel free to do that. Yes. There you go. Ricky has one of the approaches. So element.remove.
Could we append child? Like we'll do query selector to select like whatever the it is, and then append child with that query selector.
Append child. Append child, you'd be adding something.
Oh, so then I'll probably want to remove child.
There you go.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so if we have access to the schedule container, Parker, let's just say, let's say we have access to, so we have our schedule container. We've used let's just say we did like document dot query selector, and we've selected the schedule container. So now we have this stored in our schedule container. So how are we going to use remove child on this schedule container?
We want to reference that element, so schedule container dot append remove, and then should we have anything inside of append remove, or it's just gonna be blank?
So we actually want to be using append remove. If we're removing a child, what element do we have to target to remove the child? Because it's interesting because this schedule container is actually the element we're trying to remove. So this schedule container is the child, right? So if we want to remove this child, we have to target this element's parent node. So I believe we could just do something like this, and then we could do remove child and put our schedule container in here. Which this seems a little repetitive, but this should work. So because we have our schedule container, we have our parent node, we remove a child, and we pass in our schedule container so it knows which child to remove. Because our parent node, we have our schedule container, our parent node is body, and this body actually contains two nodes. We have our schedule container, and we have our course details, which we haven't built yet. So we would start at this element. We would do dot parent node to target the body. Then we do dot remove child, and then we'd have to say this is the child we want removed. So that's one method that would work. That would actually remove it entirely from the DOM as well. So if you use the remove method on the schedule container, so if we get the schedule container and we just do schedule container dot remove, that should just remove it from the DOM. And then we could also do it with this. Which would you go with though, Parker? Like if you have the choice to go between this one and this one, which would you choose and why?
Okay, so target click function. See target schedule remove element. Wait, what's the difference between the two?
Oh, my bad.
They're
My bad.
identical.
I chime in.
Hold on one second. Alright, there you go.
Oh, so definitely number one, because there's just more.
It's simpler, right?
Yeah.
It's much. It does the same exact thing with less code, basically.
So then how would you write that for the first one?
Code in the chat.
We're gonna get to that. So I'm basically, the reason why I'm writing out all these different methods of doing it is I'm gonna have everybody choose one and actually write it out.
So we chose mine and wrote it out, and then we can already see like all these steps.
Yeah. So this is just pseudocode. This is just like the plain English version of, but y'all are actually gonna take these and convert them into code. So we'll go. Let me go ahead and create a JavaScript file, and I'll invite everybody into the code editor, and we will go ahead and we'll start writing some code. So let me see if there's anything that I had that we're not including here, because I believe I had 5 different methods. Using the display property. Did we use the display property? Yes, display to none. Class list. Okay, so this one was the one that we didn't do. This one actually requires that we add a little bit of CSS. So I'm going to go ahead and just, this is still technically there.
this is nice. I like that you did this.
What? Wrote it out. Yeah.
Yes, that's really nice.
Yeah, and I think going forward, just like these some changes with like the classes that are gonna happen each week, it's being more streamlined. They're gonna be like a little shorter, it's like an hour or two, and then it's gonna be like this every single week, where it's gonna be just like easier to break it down, and then we can have like a little lecture like Jim's doing now, and then coding.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
So with this one
Yeah.
here, you would be, hold on just one second. So with this one here, you'd be adding a hidden class to the CSS and a show. And then I believe you'd actually just be using visibility here. So you'd be using visibility like you said, James. So this was just a reusable method of doing the same thing you were talking about, but anyone could feel free to do that. Let me just make sure using remove method. Removing a child node from the parent. Oh, we didn't do this one either. Enter HTML and text content. So that's actually going to remove. It's going to keep. This one will keep the schedule container on the page, so that schedule container div will still be on the DOM, but everything within it will disappear. So this is kind of in between both of them. So let me just do like in between. Use inner HTML to remove content from container. I don't really like this one. I don't like this one or any of the ones above. Just for this particular case, it's not something we're going to toggle on and off. It's something that when you click dismiss, you actually would just want to remove it from the DOM entirely and just like finish your course or whatever you're doing. So these two are definitely the ones I would go with for this specific case. But all of these work. And you're going to realize I try to emphasize this as much as possible. And that's the reason why I go through showing all these different versions of doing things. Because someone's going to be like, oh, well, I've always just used display to do this. And that's fine. Display works sometimes. But there's certain situations where display none is good. And then display visible or whatever the value that shows it again. That works, but there's specific use cases for this. This is an element that you want to just toggle back on and forth. If it's not something you want to toggle back on and forth, you actually want to remove it entirely from the DOM. It's not something that you expect to come back, then you don't want to use this. So it's important to understand all the different methods of doing something and why and when you would use different ones. And if you start learning on this lower level, like just some introductory stuff, that every problem has multiple solutions and each solution is good for different reasons, and understanding why one solution is good for certain things and why another solution is good for something else, that's going to scale up to your whole career, because it happens on every level. It starts small like this, but then it grows. This concept is never going to leave you, and actually thinking through and analyzing every solution, understanding why you're choosing a solution is so important. Some of the best software engineers that I've known, they did this. It was so clear when they did this, and just watching their thought process and thinking through, like, and actually, because you're going to come in contact with people where you're like, why are you doing it like that? And they're not going to be able to answer that question. And then you're going to come in contact with people who you ask them, why are you doing it like that? And they're going to be able to tell you exactly why. And if you ask them, what were the other options? Which ones did you decide not to go with? They're also going to be able to answer that. Those are the ones you want to learn from. So find as many people like that as you can and pick their brains and connect and become friends with them, because those are the people you want to be friends with, not the people who are just choosing solutions because this is the first solution I saw, you know. All right, cool. So James, you had a question? What's up, man?
Yeah. Okay. So first thing I would say, that sheet where you outlined everything, I think that's so great. Could you put it in the code, as a text file, another file that we would have to look at? Just put it in the code itself. Save it as a text document inside the code. That's really helpful, because you've outlined the 3 different ways I've seen all three ways. I've never really been sure. The one where you're using the child and the nodes seem to me more sophisticated and a little bit harder because then you have to understand. It's good to know because then you have to understand the DOM more. You have to understand what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
The first way, it's simpler for and easier, I think, for people to understand. And once you do it, it's really simple to always know how to do it again. You simply go like, I pasted my code in the chat. If you ever wanted to do that, then all you know is you got to use a constant to identify whatever you're going to do. Then you need to do a function. Well, it's better if you have a function because in the function you can have multiple things that you want to have happen with that particular element. Sometimes you might want to make it disappear. Sometimes you might want to make it move. There's all kinds of different events that do those things based on whatever you has happened before in your function. You can write it so that you can do multiple different things and you see that function and you know you're doing multiple different things. But your outline is so great because, like you said, you learn all three different ways, and then you can try to figure out, well, why am I doing it this way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes, sir. Cool. Thank you for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and invite those subscribed into the Visual Studio Code. For those who have been here before, go ahead and click the link. Hop into the code editor. For those who are like, hey, I want to hop into the code editor, but you're new, we have a few people, Uday, Maddie, Liz, you know what to do, Kelvin, and Fernando. If you're like, how do I get in here? Feel free to so you're going to be able to unmute, you're going to be able to pop into the chat, open up the chat and read along, write, communicate with the developers and actually hop into the code editor and write some code with us. So just go up to the Start Here channel, read that, because if you're new and unsubscribe, you probably haven't even read this channel yet a lot of the time. And then if you click on this Patreon, you can see that you get a 7-day free trial. So we're still in Patreon for now. We're going to be moving away from Patreon sooner than later once I have the new system up. But this is it for now. So, all right. So we got a couple people hopping in right now. I'm going to go ahead and copy some of these into the JavaScript file. Go ahead and just... All right.
Then we should put our name on what is ours when you copy it in.
Yes. So.
Okay. Just to say, I don't actually want to write the code. I want to think. I want to see other people do things that I don't know how to do. I already know how to do mine. I've done it at least 100 times.
Okay. Target schedule container. Set schedule containers inner HTML to empty string, I believe. Cool. All right. So who wants to do which one? Go ahead and who do we have in here so far? Javier, Parker, Ricky. So I'm waiting on Toya. Toya, if you want to pop in. And James, it doesn't look like you're in here. You said you weren't going to pop in, so we're just waiting on Toya and James if y'all want to pop in. Otherwise, feel free to...
I'm not that good or yet with JavaScript, so should I not pop in? Because I'm not. I'm a beginner with a beginner JavaScript.
Yes, I would say hop in. This is specifically designed for beginners, so you want to get your hands dirty. The thing that I did here is I went ahead and I wrote pseudocode. So you could literally just start, let's just say you choose this one here on line 2. I don't know if you're looking at my screen, but if you look at my screen, we have step 1 is target element. Which element? The dismiss button. So if you're like, how do I do this in JavaScript? You could just copy this right here. You could come over to Google and just say target element JavaScript, and I probably could have used better language. So let's just say target property. No, target is a bad. I'll just say select element.
Select element.
Select does have an element.
Document dot get ID select. Well, first you're gonna do a constant.
Get element. That's probably the way you want to do it.
Element.
Yeah. So get element. So you would just use like right here, get element by ID. But doing Google searches is a skill. So you want to be able to get a little bit of skill and word things correctly. And if you're having trouble finding out how to write this JavaScript code, and you're like, hey, I'm on step 1, target element, and I can't target the dismiss button, then all you have to do is just unmute and ask. Say, hey, I'm having trouble finding out how to do this right here. Could I have some help? And then, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll just break it down exactly the way that I did right now. So right here, instead of target element, get element. Get element is definitely a better way to word this. So yeah, I would give it a shot. I would give it a shot even if you're new. Because you want to make as many mistakes as soon as possible. The sooner you start making mistakes, the sooner you start learning the fastest. It's going to be super uncomfortable in the beginning, but it's gonna definitely help you learn a lot faster. It's going to be more beneficial for you if you get involved. Yep. So feel free to choose one of these. It looks like Parker chose the last one. So just add your name the way that Parker did on line 39 to the one that you're going to do. And just so everyone else knows not to take yours. So Javier took the first one, Parker took the last one. And then, yeah, feel free to go ahead and start coding this. And then for those who are just kind of watching along, feel free to comment or chat or ask questions while we're waiting.
Jim, while they're doing that, it's like we're going to have 3 different methods, right?
6, I believe.
Okay, so it might be silly. Tell me if it's silly, right? When I try to do something like that, and I know there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it, I make multiple script sheets, like script 1, script 2, script 3. Have all of the scripts that have all of the scripts exactly the same, except for that major thing that I'm not always sure of how to do. For instance, like the node stuff, I don't really do that, but I know it's good to know. So I would make a separate script file for that to see that it works. And then when I want to see that it works all different ways, I just identify I'm going to use that script for it. Am I making any sense at all?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm building a site or an app, I want to separate my logic for sure, but I also don't want to separate my logic until it needs to be separated, because there's times where I've over optimized and I put like too much different code in different files, and it's just you're introducing complexity that you don't need. So with something like this where we just have 6 functions, like 6 methods, that's cool just to put it all in one JavaScript file just to keep everything nice and together, you know. But it also depends on preference, man. Like some people just like in Java, I was building a server with Aditya last night, and it's like Java doesn't even let you put more than one class inside of the file. Like you have to separate things, which I sort of like that. So yeah, man, it all comes down to preference, how you like doing things, and then what you're building, you know. But something simple like this, where it's the same functionality, I would definitely keep it in the same file.
For some reason, my live server is not working where I can open up in my browser at the index HTML file.
Huh. Yeah, on Monday it was working for some people and it wasn't working for other
Oh.
people, which was, yeah, I don't know what it was.
I'm just using just a code pen for now.
Okay, cool. Cool. What's up, Jan? Welcome back. Jan, I think I saw that you resubscribed, so I don't know why your microphone is muted. You should be able to go to Patreon, go to your account settings, and there's a button in there that says connect to Discord. And if you click that connect to Discord button from your Patreon account, then it should automatically give you the role you need. Because I'm pretty sure I saw that you resubscribed the other day, so that might be the missing link there. And then for the other people, Kelvin, Maddie, feel free to just hang out and watch if you want. If you don't want to sign up, but send me a message if you'd like. Just say hey. Just a direct message.
Just to be clear, when we click on the dismiss button, that's clearing the entire schedule container.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right, so we got Javier, we got Toya, we got Parker down here, and then Ricky, are you doing one? Ricky?
No, but I'm happy to if you want.
Yeah, do your thing.
Cool.
I'll go ahead and do this one, I guess.
Maybe the people who are doing it should put it under their name and their code so we know who's doing what.
We're gonna go from top to bottom anyway, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. Schedule container class. Actually, what's the dismiss button? Dismiss. Did anyone add a ID to the container? That's okay.
Does it need an ID?
No. I'll just use the class.
Okay.
ask a question, Jim?
Of course.
Okay, why would we need to get rid of the entire container if all we want is the button to disappear, to be hidden? If the button is hidden, you can't click it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all you need to do is make the button disappear, not the container. Is that correct?
Nah, we want to remove the whole content from the screen. Because if we're not interested in scheduling learning time, we don't want to see any of this.
Oh, you want the whole container to, when they click this dismiss, you want the both buttons to disappear?
We want everything within this border to disappear. The icon, the header, the paragraph,
Oh,
and both buttons.
okay. I understand that.
Yeah, everything.
You know, I actually need 3 screens to follow.
3 screens?
You need one screen to see the code that you're writing now. You need one screen to see Discord. And you need one more screen for the browser when something changes in the browser.
Oh, I just have one screen.
You must have a really, really big screen.
Yeah, I think it's like 27 inches. 27-inch screen.
Oh, well, one of mine is 60 inches, one of mine is 27 inches, and
Yeah,
I don't
27
have
is.
the one yet.
Yeah, you just work with what you got. It's like I remember, like you said, just a laptop and I'll just alt tab between the windows, and it was like just painful, but it's like you work with what you get.
Yeah, 70-year-old eyes, remember that. 70-year-old eyes.
That's much harder, much harder.
I have a question.
Yes.
I guess with JavaScript, I'm having trouble understanding how to put all the pieces together to make something do something. Like I'm learning different component arrays and how to write functions, but I don't understand how to put all the components together to actually make something work.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and once everyone's done, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna walk through these very slowly. So, you're sort of at this point where you're learning like variables, expressions, statements,
yeah,
arrays, objects, like the very small fundamental pieces of JavaScript. And
right.
right now we're sort of piecing them together. So this might be considered more towards the intermediate level than introductory level because you're more at the like beginner, which is totally fine. I would say try to learn one thing tonight. If you could learn one thing, that's a success. Yeah, you just
Okay.
want to learn one thing that you could take with you, and you'll be good to go. With stuff like this,
Do you
you
have
don't feel overwhelmed or like I don't understand 90% of this stuff. That's okay. Just learn one thing. So ask as
okay?
many questions as you want.
Okay.
Jim?
Is there like a video or anything that you recommend that can kind of help me
Yes,
understand how to piece
yes,
it? Piece it?
yes, if I could stop you. Jim, stop me if I'm out of
Okay.
line.
I didn't even hear the question. What was the question, Toya?
I said, is there like a video or something you suggest that can maybe help me understand how to piece it all together?
Yeah, there's tons of good material out there. I could send you some stuff for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. What are you using right now?
I signed up for a course on Udemy.
Which one?
So I'm actually going through. Let me see who this is by. I can't think of the guy's name. When I think of the name of the gentleman that's doing the one that I'm on, I will let you know. I cannot think of his name at the moment.
It's all good. Yeah, just let me know which one you're on right now. I have a bunch of good instructors that I really love. Andrew Mead is really good. Steven Grider is really good. Andrew Mead is really good for people who are like super new, because he brings you from a place of like brand new, you don't have to know anything, to a
Uh-huh.
place of like very high level intermediate. And Steven Grider, he integrates a lot of software engineering and just computer science concepts into his learning. So like I would start with the Andrew Mead, focus on him for like a month or 2 months, and then move on to Steven Grider and start expanding your computer science knowledge as well. Um, but
Okay.
I'll send you that
It's
stuff.
okay. It's his name is Colt Steele. That's the one I.
Oh, Colt's good
Uh,
too. Yeah, Colt's really good.
okay.
All right, so let's see what we got here. Javier's working on this right here. I believe that's Toya working on this here. So you're on the newer end, which is totally fine. No sweat. Um, I built a couple functions here, different functions for the same one here. So we'll test out them one by one. Is anyone still working on theirs?
I'm done.
You're done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and remove like all of these comments. Ricky, you're done?
Yeah, I'm good. Oh, wait, but don't remove. Wait. My code was in the comment.
Oh,
No?
no.
Oh, no, sorry. Never mind. I'm tripping.
Alright, so that's Ricky, Parker. Good Parker trying to use these shortcuts over here. I see that. That's slick, bro.
Trying to say my name. After you delete it.
Alright, so we got Parker, Ricky, me. I don't think anyone did this one. Totally fine. Toya. I'm going to go ahead and just comment yours out. And then this is Javier up here, right? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and comment out all the code, and we're going to go ahead and test them one by one. Who wants to try out their code first?
Mine.
You? All right, since you're the only one uncommented. All right, so we have... Which one did you have, Parker? Enter HTML.
As far as the... Wait, what?
Which method did you use?
Oh, to clear it, I just... Wait, do you want me to break it down like line by line, like what I did?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So first I used document. I wanted to reference the entire structure of the HTML file. And then I wanted to use the id, or the ID, so I just, whatever it's called, so button dismiss. And then with that button, I wanted to attach an event listener to it. And so when you do something, so I want to use the mouse click, so just when you click on it, it's going to call a function. And so it's a very simple function it's going to call. I want to select the container that I want. And so the container I want is going to be the schedule container, which is the entire thing, whatnot. And then I'm going to set it to an empty string. So I use inner HTML. I could use like inner text or something else, but inner HTML just works. And then just make it empty. So that's all it is. So it's going to grab that ID, click it, and it's going to run this function, and then it's going to set it to nothing, just an empty string.
Okay, cool. So, Toya, you're still in here, right? Okay, cool. So, what this is this document right here, that's an object that lives in the browser. So, when you start up a new session, the browser is actually going to create this object automatically. So, if we go to MDN HTML document object model, I'm going to go ahead and post this in the resources channel. This is that object. I believe here's a good one too. Introduction to the DOM. So this is all stuff that you really need to know, especially for web development. And the object, this document, right? You've done objects, right? Like you know what an object is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this word right here is an object. It contains properties and it contains methods. So this get element by ID, that's a method that lives in the document object. So if you run document.get element by ID, that's actually going to execute some functionality, some code that you can't even see. And what you're going to tell it, and basically what you're telling it is there's a document in the browser. And inside this document, I want to get one of the elements inside the document, and I want to get it by its ID. What's the ID? Button dismiss. So if we come back and we look at our document, this is our HTML code that represents the document that's actually stored in the browser. So if you look at them, you see we have this element right here has an ID, or it's this one that we're targeting, right? This one has an ID. This button has an ID that says button dismiss. So when we run document get element by ID and we pass in button dismiss, this code right here is just giving you access to this element, this button element. So now you have access to this button element, and since you have access to this button element, the same way that you ran this method on the document, now you could run methods on this. So you have your document. You start with the document object. You call this method on the document object. But when all this code evaluates, just this document dot get element by ID, it evaluates down to the element. What element? The button element that has this ID on it. So now we have this button element. Since we have this button element, now we could also run methods on this button element, because the same way that this object, the document, has methods built inside of it, get element by ID being one of them, each element also, they have methods built into them. And one of the methods built into elements is the add event listener. So we would do, it'd basically be like this, add event listener. And so we want to add an event listener to the button. That means when a certain event goes off, in this case a click, then we want to execute this code inside of here. So let me show you, let me grab one more thing from here. Element, MDN, HTML. So here's just some information about elements and element. That way you could just take a look at the actual documentation. The sooner you can start reading the documentation, the better it's going to be. So you see we have our document, get element by ID. This is the element that we're targeting. The only reason that this evaluates down to the button is because if you look at our button, it has an ID called button dismiss. If we did like button dismiss with one missing S and we spelled this name wrong, it would just return a null value. So it wouldn't work. You have to make sure that the string inside of the get element by ID matches exactly the element that you want to target and start manipulating. But if you come here to the MDN web docs, you'll see that the element, there's like, this is a property, this is property, element.children, element.class list, element. So these are all properties, last element child, local name, outer HTML. These are all just properties. So most of them are just string values that you could target and use to like do things. And then they also have methods. So each element is going to have add event listener, events. Yeah, all the different events that you could run on one. And yeah, so come through here and just try to understand the documentation. It's not like you have to understand it inside and out, but once you start understanding just like I'd say, let me check out some of this too. I don't know if you started digging into this, but yeah, I wish that when I first started that that I got better with just reading documentation. If I could go back from day one, I would have watched way less videos, way less tutorials, and I would have went straight to the documentation as quickly as I possibly can. Because the quicker you learn how to just get to the documentation and read this technical language, the better everything's going to be for you. You're going to learn so much faster.
Okay,
You're
thank you. I
basically
really
going to...
appreciate
Yeah, for
I
sure.
appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so let me just comment out what Javier has here, and let's go ahead and let's test out what Parker got. So I'm going to go ahead and click inspect. We'll open up the console in case we get any errors, and I'm going to click on dismiss. Nothing is happening. Why?
Click function, schedule container. Let's see. Looking through it. Is there anything else in that file? Nope, everything's commented out. Oh, did we reference the main.js file in the HTML
We did not.
file?
Good catch.
Haha.
So there's no way when we put this index.html into the browser is like, hey, I know about this HTML file, but we didn't also slide the main.js into there. Like if we go ahead and slide the main.js into there, it's just going to render our JavaScript. But there's no way that our document knows that there's JavaScript at all unless we pass our JavaScript into our HTML. So if you want to go ahead, Parker, and just add a script that lets our HTML know that there's a JavaScript file it needs to know about.
Wait, it's link. Wait.
You need to do it at the top, not the bottom.
You could do it in the head or you could do it at the bottom. If you do it in the head, then you have to write like
You say script dot defer.
defer.
If you put it in the
Exactly.
bottom, it reads code from the top to the bottom.
Yes.
You don't want your HTML to render, because if you render and then it goes to the bottom, there's an issue with it. The recommendation now is that you put the script at the top and you use defer to tell it, don't render anything until it tells the script that you want the script to work whether the HTML is rendered or not. If you look at the documentation, it will tell you that. They don't put it at the bottom anymore.
Cool. Can you just post that documentation for us, James?
I will look it up and I will try to have it for the next class for you.
All right, cool. You said that if it renders in the bottom, then there's an issue. Do you know what that issue is?
It explains it to you. I read it and I understood it. Then after I read something and I understood it, I know how to do it. I'm sorry, Jim, I'm just too old. Once I know how to do it, I just do it.
Yeah. No, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean,
because I don't want to. Because then I go and start telling people this, and if they say why, I want to be able to have that answer. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, I'll try to have the answer for you.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no sweat. I'm just curious. All right, so you have source, and if you put it in the head, Parker, you just have to put defer.
Oh, so it loads first.
Just so it doesn't load until after the HTML renders.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
All right, cool. And then,
Hold cross my fingers.
all right,
Dismiss.
there we go. There we go.
That's it.
We still have the border though.
Oh man, what's that from? I may have to. Is there a little bit of CSS in that container? No, there's nothing.
Yeah, so you could see how this this solution it works, but then you'll also have to change CSS as well, you know, because you're not actually removing this div, you're just removing the content from the div. So if there's CSS on the div, which there's a border of 1 pixel, then that border of 1 pixel isn't going to disappear. It's going to be there. You would have to remove that manually as well. But it works. So good job.
Where in the file is the 1 pixel? So I'm looking at, we don't have a CSS file, right? So
yeah, we do.
Oh, that's why. That's why.
Yeah, but no sweat. Your method worked though, so no sweat. Good job. All right, so next we have Ricky. Ricky, you want to break down what you did?
Yeah, most likely, most people created a handle to target the dismiss button. I created a second handle, reference, whatever we want to call it, to reference the schedule container, which is the element we want to remove. And the third line, line 53, I'm just attaching built on the fly function that only gets executed on the click event that does a schedule container dot remove. A dot remove is a function offered by any node that lives in the DOM. And what it does is it removes such element, such node.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not probably the best person to explain in English.
No, you're good, man. That was a good explanation. Cool. All right, so nothing else is highlighted right now. Let's go ahead and try it out. Nice. Perfect. Perfect. Got it all. It's looking good. So it dismisses it the way that we need it to be dismissed. Beautiful, beautiful. Good job. Cool, cool. And then I went ahead and just did a couple things here. So I created, I targeted the dismiss button and the dismiss button here. Now looking at it, since I wrote this code twice, I would probably just go ahead and say const button or dismiss button, and then just make it a little cleaner there so I can reuse it. But I created 2 event handlers, one of them being a click that removes the schedule container. In this one, I use the same method Parker used, but as we can see, there's a problem with that one. And in the second one, we're removing the schedule through the parent. And then you can see that with this remove schedule container, I'm just setting the inner HTML to an empty string. So let me go ahead and comment. Yeah, just that one out. We'll go ahead and we'll dismiss. Document, query selector. Go ahead and stop trying to be fancy and just go ahead and just post this right in here. I did want to do something after I showed everybody too, though. That's why I set it up like that, because I wanted to, because I have dismiss button add event listener, and then I have this other dismiss button add event listener. And there's something cool you could do if you create an array, so like R1, and inside the array I have, if I pass these methods inside the array, so if I passed that one, and then I passed this one, these two into an array and you're like, hey, I need to add an event listener to this dismiss button that handles multiple different functions, then you could do array one map, and for each function then you add dismiss button. Like, let's just say you needed to add multiple event listeners to the same element. You would just put the functions that you need to add to the dismiss button inside of an array, and then you would just pass the function in. So you'd actually be able to add multiple events. You would just map over the array of functions and add an event. You basically attach an event listener for every function that exists. Sometimes I've seen stuff done like this where there's like 30 functions that you need to add to different elements and that sort of thing. And so you're able to just map over an array of functions and add each one of the functions to, but let me not get carried away here. All right, so what do we got? We have, so basically what I did is I have my document, get element by ID. The ID that I targeted was the button dismiss. I go ahead and do dismiss button, add event listener. It's a click. I'm going ahead and I'm just passing in the function here. And then inside here, I'm targeting the schedule container. If you come over here, you'll see we have our schedule container. Actually, it's a underscore, so that's probably why it didn't work before. And then I'm setting the inner HTML to an empty string. So boom, same thing, same problem. We have the border showing up. Let me go ahead and fix that there. That was probably the cause of the issue. Cool. So I have my two functions. Dismiss button. Cool. Yeah, there we go. So that was the first one. Very similar to the one Parker did. And then let me go ahead and just uncomment out the second one. This is removing the schedule container through the parent. So you could see in this one, I targeted the schedule container. I have the schedule container here. So I'm targeting the schedule container element, which is everything within this border. Then I'm targeting the parent node of this container, which is the body. And then I'm removing a child from the body, and the child that I'm removing from the body is a schedule container. So this should work here. And then let's fix that. And remove schedule through parent. We should be good. Boom. And that works too. So let me go ahead and just try this out for y'all. Alright, so let's say that we have our const function array just for fun, and I have all the functions that I need to add to the event listener inside here. And then I do function array dot map. For each function, I want to add an event listener to the dismiss button. So I'm going to do this. And so I'm adding both of them at the same time, and they both happen on click. So I want to make sure that they're both actually working and they're both attached. So I'm going to say one here, and I'm going to say console.log2 here. And alright. So we'll map over our function array with all of my functions in it. For each one, we will take our dismiss button, we'll add an event listener called click, and we'll pass in the current function. The first function we add will be this one. Then we'll continue mapping over the array. The second one will be this one. And so when I click dismiss, then we should see in the console log 1 and 2. They should both execute. There we go. Both of them execute. Now, this doesn't really make sense because both of them are on click and both of them are making it disappear. But this would work in other situations where, like, maybe you need one to disappear, one to appear, or colors to change, or theme, or you never know. There's ways you could mix and match and combine things in really cool and creative ways. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
So
All right.
that one, you're creating a function that captures both of them so that you can do something with either one depending on what you want to do.
Well, it comes down to efficiency. So let's say, because I have 2 functions, right?
Right.
In my case, I only want to add one function to the dismiss button at a time,
Right.
because they both do the same thing. But there's times where you want to add 10 functions to an element. You know what I'm saying? Or, yeah, let's just say that you want to add 10 functions to an element and they all do something different. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
For example, so in that case, what am I going to go ahead and create code that looks like that? Nah. I just want to add the 10 functions to an array, probably stored in another file.
Right. Yeah.
And then you just map over that function array, and for each function inside of the array, you run this code. Dismiss button, add event listener, and the function, the current function. Because if I
Thank you
had,
for showing that to us.
yeah, it's just a interesting little thing, little fun thing, you know. Get people thinking about the things you could do, you know. All right, so who's next? Nobody did anything here. Toya, and then we have Javier. Let's see what you got here. All right. So you have document, get element by ID. So you're on the right path there. You're targeting the dismiss button. And then add event listener, and you're trying to add an event listener to the button as well. Yeah, so you're on the right track here. You're trying to target the dismiss button, and you're trying to add an event listener to the dismiss button. So let's go ahead and do, all right. Actually, Javier, you've seen a couple other solutions, right? So let's say, let me ask you this. What are the similarities between Ricky's solution and Parker's solution? And what are the differences?
Well, the difference, to me, it's obvious that you start with a const.
Mm-hmm.
And the similarities are that they're using document. And about document for event listener and query selector.
Yes.
Maybe no.
Yes. Okay. So if we start from the top and work our way down to the bottom, the first thing that they both have is this, right? Document dot get element by ID. So they both have that. In Ricky is targeting the schedule container, and Parker is also targeting the schedule container. Ricky is using get element by ID to target it, and he's storing it in a variable. Parker is using query selector, and he's just executing it in line. So he's not actually storing it in a variable. But they're both targeting the schedule container. And then Parker goes ahead and changes the content of the schedule container, while Ricky goes ahead and removes the schedule container. Ricky is adding an event listener to the button. Parker never does that. Parker, actually, yeah, you are. He's just doing it up here. So Ricky adds an event listener like this. Let's just keep it simple. And Parker does it like this. I'm going to go ahead and just simplify this as well. Yeah. So Ricky is storing his dismiss button inside of the dismiss button variable and then calling the event listener later, but still just passing a function in. So saying dismiss button, add event listener, on click, execute a function. Whereas Parker, he's not storing it in a variable. He just has document get element by ID button. So this button right here, this and this, these two lines of code, 77 and 78, this is the same exact thing. The only difference is in Ricky's,
He stored it in that variable.
yeah. So they're both using this line of code right here. The only difference is Ricky stored it in this. But when you break it down, they're both the same exact thing. So they both targeted. The first thing they did, both of them, was target that dismiss button. Do you know why?
Why did they? I'm sorry. What's the question?
Why did they both target the dismiss button?
Because that's the first thing that we want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the whole thing is the dismiss button. That's where that's coming from.
Yeah, exactly. Because no matter what solution we use, if when we click this dismiss button, there's no functionality attached to it, nothing's gonna happen. Right? So yeah. So that's the first thing, and you got that right. Document get element by ID. Dismiss button. So the only
How come
thing
you just really quickly? How come you went back one space on that first one? There can't be any space between that.
I just don't
It's
leave any
just-
space. I just don't leave any space, but I think technically it would work.
Okay. So that's just a preference. Okay.
Yeah. I think even if you did like that, it would work. Because I'm pretty sure the JavaScript interpreter would continue interpreting on the next line. Like, if it's possible to continue interpreting, the JavaScript interpreter will continue interpreting even through white space.
Gotcha.
But, I don't know. I just do that for some reason.
No, I'm just that helps me because I'm trying to think what is the best way to, to type something, clear.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, people have different preferences for readability too. Like for some people, some people, because I see some people's code and I'm like, why would you do that? And they're like, it's just better for me. A lot of it is preference. All right. So here, you're also doing this correctly. You're adding an event listener, right? But where do you want to add the event listener?
Looking back now, after the query selector.
After the query selector. So let's take a look at where did Ricky and Parker add their event listener? Where did they attach it to?
I don't follow.
Like you see Ricky's code and Parker's code.
Mm-hmm.
They did dot add event listener, right?
Right.
So where did they add their event listener to? What element?
To the Ricky did it to the variable. And Parker passed that to passed the schedule container to the query selector. I don't know. I'm lost on this one.
Where did Parker add the event listener to?
Oh, I'm sorry. 67.
Yes.
I didn't know if you meant literally like on which line or.
No, just like what element did he attach it to? Like you could see Ricky attached an event listener to the dismiss button. Parker also attached an event listener to something on line 67. What did he attach it to?
To the dismiss function?
To the dismiss button. Because this document get element by ID, button dismiss, that's going to evaluate down to this same dismiss button. The only difference is Ricky stored it in a variable and Parker didn't store it in a variable. He executes it in line. But you see this dismiss button that Ricky added the add event listener to right here?
Yeah.
If you follow that back up here to the variable that he created, document get element by ID, button dismiss. Document get element by ID, button dismiss. So Ricky waited a little bit later to add on the event listener. Parker just added it on right away. But if you look at Ricky's code on line 61, if we wanted to, we could just get rid of that entirely and just add the event listener to same way Parker did, you know? But they're both adding it to the button because that's where we need it. Because what are we trying to click? What do we want? What do we want?
The dismiss button.
The dismiss button, exactly. So that's where we need the event listener. So you have your dismiss button, but instead of adding the event listener to the dismiss button, you're adding the event listener to the document. So in your case, like, let's go ahead and code this up. So let's say that we did document dot add event listener on click. What was your? Let me see. So we're actually not going to need that. But yours is target schedule container and then set schedule style display to none. So let's go ahead and create the schedule container. We're going to do that by doing document dot query selector schedule container. So this is actually going to give us access to the schedule container, the one we're trying to delete. And then we want to set schedule container dot, what is it? Style dot display equals none. So that would be it right there. There's one problem though, but we'll go over that in 1 second. So you have your document get element by ID, your button. So you're actually just executing that in line. You're not storing it anywhere. So this is kind of just like code that's never going to be executed right now, at least. Then we do document add event listener click. So we're passing 2 arguments into this method. The first one is a string called click, and the second one is a function. The function targets the schedule container, stores it in this variable, and then it sets the display to none. So this should work. Let me just make sure everything else is commented out. But it's going to have some interesting behavior. So if we go ahead and reset that, boom. So it disappears. But let's say I click on like course details. What the heck? What if I click on schedule learning time? What the heck? So I don't even have to click on the button. Let me click like down here on the bottom right.
Is that because I'm calling the entire document instead of the specific string?
Exactly. You're adding an event listener to the document. You're not adding it to the button. So if you add this to the button, you could click anywhere on the document. You could click all the way down here, and it's still going to delete it. You only want it to happen when you click this button, though, you know?
So what I want to put up here, dismiss button, or sorry, button dismiss, would that do that or no?
If you store this in a variable, then you could
Yes.
put the variable right there, similar to how Ricky did.
Right. Okay. Got it.
So go ahead, because you already have this. So just store that line of code in a variable. Just start with that, and look at Ricky's code if you want. He does the same thing on line 60. So you're gonna have to choose how you want to store your variable with either a let or a const. You're gonna use let if you expect it to change somewhere in the program, and you're gonna use a const if you expect it to never change. All right, and then you have to give it a name. You have to give it just a custom name of your choice. It could be anything. This BTN, perfect. And then we actually want it just right here because you're going to be storing. All right, so boom. So you're executing this line of code, document, get element by ID, button dismiss. So this is going to evaluate down to the button that we're clicking, and you're going to store that button and this button. Now you need to execute this add event listener on this button. So just replace this button dismiss, button dash dismiss with your variable. There you go. Perfect. Yeah, so let's try that out. Let's try clicking somewhere else first. Yeah, alright, so that abnormal behavior is gone. I'm clicking everywhere. It's not working. We click the button, it disappears. Perfect. Nice. Cool. Good job, man.
Thank you.
Alright, and then we got, I think that's pretty much it. Cool. So that is that for the night. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask those before we take off. Friday, we're going to be doing the data structures and algorithms. And then next week, Parker's going to be doing HTML and CSS, introduction to HTML and CSS on Monday. I'm going to be teaching a class simultaneously, just the HTML and CSS intermediate. Tuesday, I'm going to be doing full-scale project, so working on the voting system. Wednesday, Parker and I are both going to be teaching simultaneously again, so whoever, y'all will have the choice of whose group you want to jump into. If you feel more comfortable, more experienced, you can hop into mine. If you want to do like more introductory stuff and focus on that, just get a refresher, that sort of thing, hop into Parker's. Thursday, I'm going to be doing the voting system again, and then Friday we'll do data structures and algorithms.
Man.
Hey Jim, how are you?
Hey, what's up?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good.
Good.